Welcome to Headroom. My name is Jim Owens. I'm a licensed professional counselor at Lansing Community College. I'm the host of this show, and this is a place where we talk about all things essential to mental health and well-being. I always bring a guest on the show, and we always have something different to talk about in relationship to mental health. Today I have Daryl Gaines, the chief of LCC Police, with me. We're going to be talking about physical fitness and some of the connections between what we all learned in elementary school, middle school, high school, college about taking care of ourselves physically and how that matters for us mentally. So with that being said, let's get into it. And just so people can learn a little bit about who you are, bring us up to speed.
So came to LCC in June of 2021, came from Baltimore. Not from Baltimore, but I was with the police department, Baltimore Police Department for 20 years. I started in 2001, came out of the academy. I kind of moved through the ranks in Baltimore, started as regular patrol officer, and then I moved to the drug units and moved to a couple of specialized units. And then I started to get promoted, sergeant 2008, lieutenant 2015, got promoted to captain in 2017. Yeah, I think 2017. And then only spent like 6 months at captain, got promoted to major. And then I finished out my last 3 years at major. And so, I have a wife, 2 daughters. My wife is from Michigan. She's from Flint. And so that's kind of what brought me this way. Gave her an opportunity to be closer to family. And, I wasn't ready to kill the law enforcement career just yet. So,
well, I appreciate that. Yeah, we appreciate having your experience on it. I mean, Baltimore prepares you for Lansing, I'm sure.
You're going to get the gamut in Baltimore.
Exactly. So, we have a police academy here at LCC, and when I go out to West Campus, sometimes when I go out there for events or whatever, I see those cadets, I think we call them, running up and down the stairs. Right? Yeah. I mean, there's a paramilitary, as you just went through the ranks, physical fitness that's required for law enforcement. And it's not just, I think, for chasing bad guys and bad girls.
No.
I mean, what do they talk to you about when you're coming in your training? Like, you got to be fit for this job.
Well, I mean, it's a job where you have to be fit because you never know what situation you're going to be in. But it's also, this job is very high stress. And so your mental health is really important. Your physical fitness is important to help you manage that stress. And so I think most police departments probably encourage it, some kind of a regular workout routine. I don't think you have to be necessarily in the gym lifting 500 pounds every hour, but there's different ways of getting that, sort of that fitness. And in this, in this line of business, this line of work, it's important, that, you're strong somewhat. It's important, but it's also your endurance is critical. Because just like you said, you never know when you may have to run, and you don't know how long you could be running. I myself have been in a lot of situations where, you may have a resisting subject and you find yourself in some kind of a wrestling match for, sometimes 5 minutes can feel like 5 hours when you're dealing with that kind of thing. So, for me, I try to get, I used to be in the gym a lot lifting weights, and I realized that is not always the best way. I mean, I probably got injured a couple times doing that, but now I get my physical fitness with my bike because I love being out on the road. I love biking. And that's obviously an endurance
sport.
You're
at now. Yeah. Well, I think, so speaking of endurance, being an officer for 20 years is endurance in and of itself. That's a physical and psychological endurance. My dad went into, he was in law enforcement, actually. He was an MP during Vietnam. And so when he got out of the Army, he was like, well, I'm qualified to be a cop, so I'm going to do that. So then he went into, county police work, and then eventually the state trooper in Michigan. He was a state trooper, did investigations and stuff like that. Eventually he got out of that field. I don't know how long he spent in law enforcement, 15 years probably. But I grew up until I was about 10 years old with a cop dad, that big shiny black bell,
so what the house
that duty
like,
belt and all that. I was around it for a while.
That's
and
good.
All of his buddies growing up, they were alpha males. They were just
that's
beasts.
something that's attached to us.
Yeah, exactly, right. And it is not just catching people, because frankly, he spent a lot of time driving around in a car. But it's defending yourself.
I think that's the biggest part of it. You have to, especially depending upon where you police at, but it's an inherent risk for all police, no matter where you're policing at. But yeah, most of the time when you are trying to keep yourself physically together and keep yourself fit enough to do the job, I think a lot of the times they talk about doing the job in terms of being able to handle yourself.
Yeah.
If you do get into a situation, you have to come out of it.
Yeah.
And if you're not in shape, and it's unfortunate because we do see that, there's departments that have officers that aren't in the greatest physical condition. Yeah. And I've always believed there should be some kind of a mandate, but I think there's a lot of, state laws about the type of mandates you can put in place for physical fitness. So, but I always, promote it. I encourage it. Yeah. It's almost a necessity as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I think that's, and I think about, just, in law enforcement, there's weight rooms and workout fitness centers in police departments now that there really weren't even before your time. 30, 40 years ago, that was not you go to Lansing PD, they got a weight room and stuff. Right?
Oh man, I remember when I first, my first assignment out of the academy, when I was in Baltimore, I remember what our weight room looked like. It was like a few strewn
like the
plates.
hotel weight room.
It was worse. It was worse. I mean, literally like, rusted out plates and kind of strewn, nothing matched.
Yeah,
there was like rusty barbells and, I think now it's emphasized a lot more now. And, justifiably so. I mean, we see more often now officers are, having heart attacks on the job. They're having medical episodes that, and believe it or not, a lot of that is related to not taking care of yourself. Okay. But it's also directly related to the stress of the job, and you have to find ways to relieve that. Yeah. So.
There are very few jobs where part of your job involves having to protect yourself in your own life.
Yeah. Yeah.
There are a lot of people who are first responders, paramedics, nurses, counselors. We're first responders sometimes to things, but usually nobody's coming after us in those except in your role.
Yeah. I think I think we understand that when we sign up. I mean, I think everybody sort of has an idea of what it is to be a police officer. Even if you're not one, you have an idea of what it's like to be one. Yeah. Just in terms of, the things that you see and understanding the things that we deal with. I always hate using this because you hear it all the time, but we know what we signed up for. Yeah, we do. Yeah. But at the same time, even with understanding that, there's still an obligation, right, to keep yourself fit enough so that you can actually do your job. Yeah, and I think that's important. So,
well, there's different ideas about fitness now, probably too, than there used to be. I mean, as I just said, this was like the 70s and 80s when I was looking at my dad and his buddies, and it was primarily a male workforce then, which it probably still is now. But they were all, reverse. They were like V-shaped guys and just huge dudes, and that's kind of what I grew up with as an image of strength. But now we understand there's kind of aerobic strength, the big power lifter. But then there's these marathoners and endurance and cyclists who. They can go 120 miles a day for 3 weeks, like in the Tour de France.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's a different kind of strength where it doesn't look like the bodybuilding images we saw in magazines growing up, but it's a different type.
It's a different type, and there is a different type of sort of mental fortitude that comes with that. I mean, you're out there on the road just like I am, and there is something about pushing through. Yeah, it's a little different when you're pushing through in the weight room because you can always put the weights down. You know what I mean?
That's right.
But when you are out on the road, there's nobody else that can help you. There's no spotter.
That's right.
You basically, once you get yourself out there, you got to get yourself back home.
Get yourself home.
So you got to push through. And for me, that's a totally different challenge because, like I said, for a lot of years, I was accustomed to just being in the weight room and just getting strong. Yeah. But sort of neglecting my endurance, neglecting that part of the physical fitness. And I think if you really think about it, when it comes to police work, the thing you're going to tap into most is probably your endurance. It's not even so much your strength. Yeah. It's more your endurance. It's outlasting. It's, depending upon what situation you're in. But once I kind of tap back into that endurance part of my physical fitness, I feel so much better. I just feel like, I can kind of, I don't know. I think there's like a flexibility with it too, even just being out on the bike. I don't know. It's just tapping into a whole different area of my physical fitness that I really kind of neglected before. So
how did you get turned on to that from the weight room to the bike? How did that switch happen for you?
In all honesty, probably injuries.
Okay.
I needed a way to keep myself fit, but not, put myself at injury risk. The last time I was really in the weight room pretty regularly, I ended up tearing my rotator cuff in my shoulder. And I had little tweaks and things before in the weight room, but that was the first time I was like, I'm not 20 anymore. I need something that's a little less stressful on my body that will still, keep me to where I need to be. And so I've always been into biking. Okay. I actually, when I was in Baltimore, I had 3 years where I actually supervised a mountain bike unit. So we were on bikes all day. Wow. Patrolling around. We were probably logging anywhere from 30 to 40 miles a shift. Wow. And we loved it so much that we actually entered ourselves into the Livestrong race out in Philly as a unit. Sweet. And so we went out there as a unit and ran that. I think it was 100 miles. I think that's cool. Cut it short by a couple because of the weather. But I've always loved it. Wow. And so now I've just been able to get into it on a different level. Now you're getting all the bells and whistles for the road bike and you're really getting into it now. So I'm out there pretty regularly now.
Maybe a little bit lighter bike.
Lighter bike that can move a little quicker. So,
drop bars for a little more aerodynamic position.
Exactly. As I told you, I'm going out today. So, yeah.
I know for myself, I was a runner all through my 20s, and I got into mountain climbing, rock climbing, that sheer straight up stuff. But the running was kind of what I considered my way of staying fit. I was never into weightlifting. Yeah. But then I noticed, late 20s, my knees weren't feeling real good hitting pavement, and I did not have good running form back then. I didn't know anything about it.
You just ran.
I just ran, and I did my minimum runs 4 days a week, and just 2-3 miles. It wasn't much. Right. But then I started noticing, like, man, if I want to try to do something like this in my 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, a bicycle is very low impact. Low impact. It's sustainable. You can literally ride a bike into your 80s. I mean, you see older people out there riding around right now. It's just like you said. It's the perfect exercise if you're looking for something low impact on your body, but you're looking for a good workout. Yeah. So it's perfect. And probably most of us learned how to ride a bike when we were a kid, and in Lansing, there's a bike path system here that's 40 some miles you can ride without ever getting on a road if you don't want to. Right. I like you. I like to do a combination of getting out in the country and riding outside the city, and then in the city I'll ride the bike paths, and I do a lot of mountain biking. But absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about the mental health, because you were getting into this. There's a couple things. There's some fortitude, and I know about this, and you know about this. Doing an endurance sport, when you're out there pushing yourself, and that's why I do races. It's not to win. I do it because it's hard. It's the challenge. It's challenging yourself. I think for me, that's where I really get the most out of, being on my road bike. It's just trying to achieve you're trying to reach new levels. You're pushing yourself constantly. So I can go out and I can do a 40-mile ride. And I don't know, I can average, 18 miles an hour on one ride over 40 miles. Yeah. But my ride is over and I feel like I still have some more to give. Yeah. So the next time I go out, okay, well, I'm going to try and average 19, 20 miles an hour for 40-mile stretch and see how that, and you just constantly finding pushing new goals, constantly pushing yourself. Yeah. And I love that part of it because it is mental. You're out there. You're sucking air, you're exhausted, but you still have 15 more miles to go. So it's just a constant mental fight. And then you're hitting a block headwind, a 14, 15 mile an hour headwind. And you're like, okay, well, I'm not getting off my bike and I'm not going to start walking my bike. Yeah. So I'm going to find a way to push through it. You got to finish. You have to finish. That's part of that's like one of the unwritten bike rules. Is if you have a mechanical, that's one thing, but you are not allowed to come off your bike if you're tired. Can't get a DNF. Did not finish. Nope. Yeah. And there's no spotters and there's nobody out there to push you from behind. Figure it out and find your way home. It's funny. I'll have done these things, especially in the winter. I'll ride year round. I've got a fat tire bike for the winter and a gravel bike, which is like a road bike, a mountain bike. But in the winter, I'll plan these routes out and plug them on my computer and take off. And I'm like, I want to do 35 miles today. Yeah. It's like 25 degrees out, and I live way down. It's the south side of South Lansing, like Holt. And I'll be up around Lake Lansing, which is 15 miles away on the bike, and it's miserable out and sleeting. And I'm like, I still got an hour and a half before I get home. Suck it up. You still got a long way I'm cold. Home. I'm wet. I'm getting rain sleeted on. I've been in that situation. I've been there in the heat. I mean, we get some really hot days in the summer here. Yeah. And I remember I took my bike, threw it in the back of the car, and I went out to it was when I first got
it was one of the first years that I was back here in Michigan. I can't remember the town, but I had mapped out like a 50-mile ride for myself. And I think I got to mile 35 and I was like, wow, I'm exhausted. I'm ready to stop.
Yep.
But I'm out in the middle of nowhere.
Can't do it.
I have no choice. I have to fight to get back to the hotel. I gotta go. So I love that part of it though, man. That's a constant battle.
It is fun, isn't it?
Oh yeah, I love it.
The feeling of accomplishment on the other end of this thing. I used to tell my students when I was teaching in the classroom, counseling is a hard job because you're dealing with people's trauma, not all day long, but all day long.
Right.
And you have to get into that space with them. That's difficult.
Yeah.
The next hardest thing I told them was teaching classes is harder than that because there's more resistance, honestly. With your clients want the help.
Yeah.
The students, they kind of, they have their own idea about things a little bit more. They want to direct things a little more. There can be more pushback and the pressure's a little bit higher for me there. But I always said the hardest thing I do in my life isn't counseling or teaching training counselors. It's racing my bike.
It's racing
the bike.
That is
nothing even compares to what I have to put out mentally and physically to do that.
Man,
you'd agree? Yeah.
I would definitely agree. I've played multiple sports.
Yeah.
I've played football, I've played baseball and basketball, and each sport has its own challenge.
Yeah.
But never mentally have I been challenged.
Yeah.
Like I'm challenged when I'm biking. And it's like I said, it's a constant mental war going on.
Yes.
You're constantly having conversations with yourself out on the road.
Yes.
I don't want to do this anymore. I'm tired. Why did I come out here today?
Yes.
This was stupid. I knew I wasn't feeling great. But once you're in it, you can have all the conversations you want with yourself. You still have to find your way back. And that's there. I can't think of another sport I've ever played where, and what's interesting is people that are not into cycling or not into it like that. Yeah. Everybody sort of has pulled a recreational bike out every once in a while, but people that are not into it competitively, I think they have a tendency to when they think of the hardest, most grueling sports, you think of things like football and the contact sports. Yeah. Not a lot of people think of cycling, but until you start doing it, you start realizing, like, I always have these fights with my brothers and we always fight about, where are the greatest athletes? Like, who are the greatest athletes? Yeah. I have a completely different appreciation for how wide that
who's in contention.
Yeah, it's not just about football and try riding 40 miles on a bike at like 18, 19 miles an hour and sustain that for the whole ride. Yeah. And then you tell me by the end of the ride, those guys that we see in the Peloton, Tour de France, Giro d'Italia, all those guys, and we're struggling at 18, 19 miles an hour. Those guys are literally sustaining 25, 26 miles an hour over the course of like 100-something miles.
Yeah, 5-6 hours.
5-6 hours on a bike, 25 miles an hour. Yeah. And you tell me that some of the greatest athletes in the world are not on bikes.
And they're going up mountains.
They're what, 5,000, 6,000 feet of climbing during the course of a ride? Yeah. Come on, man. That takes a special individual to do it.
It's a mental thing. And actually, I was looking up some of the research in preparation for this podcast on the connection between mental health and physical fitness. And I was going to bring in some dazzling statistics and stuff. But you know what? The more I sat and was highlighting things and starting to take notes, I was like, nobody needs to hear this. Everybody knows. Right. Everybody knows that physical fitness is good for you psychologically, physically, emotionally, relationally, socially, in every possible way you cut it. Yeah. There's almost no downside.
There's no getting around it. I mean, it's so funny because, you grow up thinking that this is good for you, and then you find out later in life, it turns out this is not good. Physical fitness has never changed. Exactly. Physical fitness has always been good for you, and it comes in all different forms. Yeah. And so I think the more higher stressed your job is, the more important it becomes for you to be physically fit. And it's not just police work. There's plenty of professions that are high stress professions. And it's one thing about being physically fit, but there is another thing about your mental fitness. And I think being physically fit helps with your mental fitness.
100%.
Yeah. And I think that's another reason why I really started to prioritize it again. Yeah. Because especially, like I said, in the field that I'm in, those two things have to be connected.
Yeah, this is one of the places I like to kind of humble my profession a little bit. We're not that much better than exercise. Counselors are not that much better than exercise for anxiety, depression, post-traumatic stress, schizophrenia. We're not that much better than exercise.
Yeah. Well, but in your field, even the same though. I mean, you guys can get worn out and stressed from dealing with so many different issues. Yeah. So your physical fitness is directly connected to your mental fitness.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's really important for all of us who do this kind of work to take care of ourselves. Mm-hmm. Like you and me, we show up, we're the instrument that's going to be used today to do our job.
Right.
I need my mind and my body. I need to be well rested, slept, hydrated, fed, and physically charged up enough to do my job. I don't just sit in a chair and listen to people talk.
No, I'm
burning a lot of glucose up in here to try to keep up where we're going and what needs to be, where we need to go next.
Yeah. And all like you said, all of that's connected, eating, not just watching your weight, but eating properly, not stuffing your face with a bunch of junk. And, it does you no good to go ride 40 miles and then come home and eat a bag of Doritos.
Can't do it. Well, exactly.
You sort of defeat the purpose of the ride. So everything needs to be in sync.
People are like, they'll see me walking around with these weird protein shakes at the office here. What are you doing with those things? I'm like, what's the point of me lifting weights and cycling if I'm just going to put garbage on top of that? I already I already suffered through something.
And your suffering should be rewarded.
It should be rewarded, exactly.
I'm not going to come suck down a milkshake after I just, did a 2,000 calorie ride. I mean, what am I doing?
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's one of these, like, the difficult thing in this is for people, everybody listening to this will know, or watching this will know, I should probably do a little more physical activity. In fact, I've stopped using the word exercise recently with my clients, and I use the word activity.
Yeah.
Would you be willing to do some physical activity every day?
Yeah.
Because exercise, they're like, well, what does that mean? I got to go lift. I got to run.
That's the first thing that comes to people's minds. Mm-hmm. You literally can go out and do a 2-mile walk and have a great workout.
Swing your arms and you're good to go.
I actually, outside of my bike, that's one of my favorite things to do. Yeah. I'll just, grab my wife and we'll go on a 3-mile walk.
Yeah.
And it's a great, it's also a great way to recover. Like I've taken walks after I've ridden like a 30-mile ride and then go take walks, but it's just relaxing. And they say that walking is some of the best exercise you can get. So you don't have to, we talk about physical fitness and keeping yourself, in some decent shape. Your mind doesn't have to go to the gym. It doesn't have to go to running 10 miles or even biking. If you're not into biking, just do something. Yeah, just move.
There's a doctor who's got a really cool one of those YouTube videos that all sketches and describes things and stuff. And he says, basically the punchline is this: if you can just limit your sitting and sleeping to 23 and a half hours a day,
100%, just get up.
I just need you to limit your sitting and sleeping to 23 and a half hours a day.
Yeah, if you can do that, then you know what? Even it's funny. I have even talked to my personal doctor. Yeah, and he said if you never touched your road bike again, and if you never hit a gym again, and if you never ran again, whatever. You just walking up and down the steps of your house for a period of time is suffice for a workout. Absolutely. Yeah. So you can just be creative with your workouts.
Getting that heart rate up a few times a day.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. So
I'm hesitant to share this, but I'll share it with you and with the public here. Like when new employees will come and get hired here, they'll come around and say, "Oh, go talk to Jim. He knows about the retirement plans." And they'll come and talk to me, and I have this little game I play. I go, Yeah, I can talk to you about the 401s and the retirement and the pension. Yeah. But tell me about your exercise routine first. And they'll go, why? I go, well, what's the point of saving money for the future if you're not going to be there?
You're not going to be here anyway, right?
You're like, that's morbid. Well, look, not everybody can do the same kinds of physical exercise, and we won't be able to do the same kind of stuff our whole life. Right. But you can find something that's good for you.
Something that you can do.
And, I appreciate you coming on talking about this because I want to encourage people that this is just how we take care of ourselves, whether we're students, we're professionals, we're both spouses, we've got family, we've got pressure and stress everywhere. Yeah. And the, mental health rests on physical health, or they go together at least if one doesn't rest on top of the other.
Absolutely. I 100% agree. Yeah. And just like you said, it's not, me and you, we bike. Yeah. But there's so many different things that you can do to get some sort of exercise during the course of a day. Yeah. Even like we said, even if it's just walking, this is just how we choose to get our exercise. But I love it. Yeah. And I will always promote it. Yeah. So get out there and do something.
Because I think some people think it's not enough if I just walked. And it's like, no, that is pretty much your foundation. If you can at least do that.
If you can do that. Yeah. Just go walk a mile and a half, 2 miles.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. You got your workout for the day.
All right, cool. Well, believe it or not, we're out of time.
Well, that went by fast.
So thanks for coming on, and everybody, if you want more information about mental health, physical health, you can always come to LCC's counseling office. We've got free licensed professional counselors there. We'll be happy to talk with you about physical fitness, health, mental health, and all that stuff. And I want to thank our producers here at LCC Connect, Dedalian and Jeremy, and wish you all a great day. Thanks.